Moving on to Chapter 15, Single Subject Designs, we're going to be looking at the case for why you would use one of these designs, what it is, single subject experimental designs in particular. Then we'll look at some concerns and some contributions about them. As we look at the case for why you'd use a single subject design, Psalm 139 really comes to mind. This whole psalm is just about how God has created us so uniquely and individually, and He knows us inside and out. And in psychology and counseling, we want to study humankind. We want to understand one another, and often we do this by comparing groups or trying to get large sample sizes. But actually, we are each so unique and so individual that really taking time to understand each person's story and to see the intricacies as God created us is a really powerful thing to do. And this is kind of leads into just the case that it actually responds to the uniformity myth, which says that it's the tendency to consider all members of a category as more similar than they really are, ignoring their differences. And many times by doing only group comparisons, we miss these little intricacies and some of these unique differences. Also, in a counseling setting, we have easier access to individuals or small groups. That's something we're seeing and doing every day without having to search for large sample sizes. And it provides a rich understanding of individuals and treatments, much richer understanding. Single subject designs are looking at variables within the same subject over a period of time through repeated observations of these variables. And some of the reasons that they aren't as common today are because of perhaps some not very systematic ways that they've been done in the past that led to a lot of methodological issues, and it kind of made it seem like it was unscientific. For example, the uncontrolled case study, where there's an observation of client, but it's unsystematic, uncontrolled in retrospect, or even if it is more systematic, they tend to have a lot of error in those things. But actually, we do have a great option for single subject designs, and that's experimental designs that are measuring the independent or the dependent variable repeatedly over time, but introducing different treatment phases under experimental conditions. And so you would need to get a stability of a baseline data and then introduce a treatment phase. So for example, the AB experimental design, you would have your baseline phase, and then after a certain number of sessions, when that baseline seems to be established, you would introduce the treatment. And there, even from this graph, you can see we look at that and we start to think, the treatment may be causing these, the differences here. However, there are threats to internal validity with this design, such as history or maturation. So you can add another phase that would be a withdrawal or reversal phase, where you would remove the treatment, and then there you would expect to see a change as well in those observations. So this is the ABA experimental design, and however, with anything like this, once you introduce a treatment, you'll tend to have carryover effects, and there's lack of replication. There's still a few things that don't make this very solid. So an ABAB design it continues to take shape. This is where we add a fourth phase, where we reintroduce the treatment phase, and this helps to replicate it, but it's still going to have carryover effects. If you want to deal with the carryover effects, you can use a randomized AB design, and this helps to address it. But actually, with both of these, there are ethical concerns anytime you're withdrawing a treatment that's actually working successfully on a client. And so if there are ethical concerns, one of the things that you can do instead of those designs would be a multiple baseline design. And this is the replication of the AB experiment across participants, settings, or behaviors. And basically, you're staggering then the introduction of the intervention phase, and you're eliminating the carryover effects of this and using these multiple baselines as almost as a control for one another. And but it can be a lengthy process. So the concerns we mentioned, carryover effects are a big thing to consider. Also, internal validity threats. There are ethical considerations with withdrawing treatment and generalizability to other individuals or situations. We can't really necessarily generalize these things, but there are a lot of contributions that these studies can bring, and that is as we drill down deeper in some of these ideas, we get a microscopic analysis. We also get to test. It's a great thing for testing new therapeutic techniques or methodology. It's a means to study rare phenomena. There's going back to those differences, unique differences, and it can counter or support existing findings. So it does great to complement the current research that's out there. So that's chapter 15.